Good day, good people, and welcome to Revolutionary Belovedness. Let me know in the chat section if you can hear me okay, whether you are here for the live session or you are watching a recording. We thank you so much for being part of our small community and growing community. If you'd like to, please enter into the chat section where you are joining us from. You will see how much of the world we actually have covered just in a few people that are here live. Tonight, we are going to encounter a reflection on mature self-knowledge and shadow integration, about developing honest awareness of our inner contradictions without denial or shame. The chat section remains open during our whole time together, and if at any time you have something you would like to share, you can enter that into the chat, and we will do our best to integrate it into part of the discussion this evening. Before we begin, let's take a moment to settle in and center down, to find a comfortable position, one that allows you to be both relaxed and alert. Let your hands rest in your lap. Take a full breath in slowly and release it completely. And as you settle, bring to mind this single word: honest. Allow that word to rest in you without analysis. Honest about your gifts. Honest about your words. Honest about the places in you that remain unexamined. Take another breath, this one a little deeper. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw release. This gathering is a place of welcome. Welcome for the whole of you. The parts you are proud of and the parts you carry quietly. The polished self and the rougher, truer self beneath it. All of it is welcome here. Take a few breaths and rest in that welcome for a moment. And then when you're ready, open your eyes and bring that same welcome into our time together. Friends, there is a particular kind of courage that does not announce itself with great drama or visible boldness. It arrives quietly, often in the middle of an ordinary day, when something surfaces from within, a reaction that surprises, an impulse that embarrasses, a pattern that reappears despite every effort to outgrow it. And this courage is the willingness to turn toward that arising and say, this is a part of me and it deserves honest attention. This is the courage at the heart of mature self-knowledge. And it is the courage the spiritual life has always required of those that are really serious about the path. Richard Rohr teaches us that the shadow, those aspects of ourselves that we have buried, denied, projected onto others, or wrapped into the costume of virtue, does not disappear through effort or willpower. The shadow only integrates through honest awareness. And friends, when we refuse to look at what lives in our inner depths, it does not become quieter. It becomes louder, finding expression through the very behaviors we most wish to overcome. The shadow speaks most powerfully in the moments we are most certain it does not exist in us. And this is why Richard insists that shadow work is not punishment but liberation, and that the goal is never self-condemnation. The goal is seeing clearly. And it is precisely this clarity that opens the soul to genuine transformation, to mature self-knowledge. That clarity, lucid, humble, compassionate awareness of one's own inner contradictions, is what Wayne Teasdale names as the sixth element of a universal spirituality. And it grows directly from the ground that Rohr's Shadows work prepares for us. Self-knowledge in Teasdale's framing is profound, comprehensive, and indispensable to growth, indispensable to transformation, and indispensable to unitive experience. And it works in tandem with humility and with daily practice, each element reinforcing the others. It is nourished by regular examination of conscience, by delving into motivations both visible and hidden. The lucidity and honesty of self-knowledge, its humble admission of fault, and its uncertainty about its own virtue keeps the seeker steadily on the path of self-transcendence, love, and pervasive peace. Teasdale understood that genuine spiritual maturity is characterized precisely by this willingness to remain uncertain about one's own goodness, to keep looking inward with honesty rather than settling for the comfort of a flattering self-portrait. The spiritual traditions that have shaped this community's exploration, all carrying versions of this same wisdoms, they all carry it, conforming that what Rohr and Teasdale describe is ancient, not merely contemporary. For example, in Christian contemplation, the examined life is understood as a pathway into union, a stripping away of the false constructed self to reveal the true self rooted in love. In the Hindu and Buddhist streams that Teasdale draws from, the practice of turning inward with clear seeing is central to liberation. And Teasdale observed that whenever he encountered mature, transformed spiritual figures across traditions, this quality of unflinching interior honesty was present without exception. Breathe into that for a moment. The shadow in these frameworks is the very material from which a deeper spiritual life is forged, not an obstacle to the path, but one of its primary teachers. The mystic and the saint are formed precisely through the willingness to remain with what is difficult in themselves, to allow the fire of self-knowledge to refine rather than to consume. And across traditions, the invitation is consistent. Look honestly, keep looking, and trust that what the looking reveals is workable. What makes this looking so demanding is that the shadow rarely presents itself plainly. It hides in righteousness. It hides in productivity. It hides in the very commitments we consider most noble. Adrienne Marie Brown names something essential when she notes that accountability is rooted in worthiness, not in the erasure of one's worst moments, but in the recognition that even at one's worst, the person remains worthy of growth. A genuine accounting of harm done in this light is an act of love for the self. To say honestly, I was at my worst, and even there I am worthy of becoming more. This is the language of shadow integration. This is the voice of someone who has moved through denial into the spacious, demanding territory of self-knowledge. Now, civil rights leader Byron Stevenson deepens this understanding when he speaks of every human being being more than the worst thing they have ever done. Shadow integration requires holding both truths simultaneously. The reality of the harm or failure and the ongoing presence of worth and possibility. Richard Rohr would say that this dual holding is the very mark of a maturing spirituality. The capacity to see oneself clearly and to respond with compassion rather than collapse. This is mature self-knowledge in practice, and it's available to every person willing to stay in the looking. Now, one of the more tender discoveries on this path is that the shadow often holds gifts alongside its difficulties. The qualities we most harshly judge in ourselves, the anger we have been taught to suppress, the hunger for recognition we have labeled as vanity, the fear we have dressed up as caution, can, when brought into honest awareness, reveal genuine needs and real energies that the soul has been carrying in secret for years. Sometimes this is referred to as your golden shadow. And this discovery does not arrive all at once. The path through shadow integration is rarely linear. It spirals. The same patterns resurface, often recognizable, occasionally wearing new disguises, and each return of a familiar pattern is an invitation to go a layer deeper rather than a sign that the work has failed. And each time they arise, the renewal of the invitation reads the same. Look again, look honestly, and meet what you find with awareness rather than alarm. Teasdale's language of examination of conscience points toward a practice that is regular, humble, and patient. Formation over time, a returning again and again to the truth of oneself before the mystery of the divine, until the interior reveals itself as a landscape of possibility rather than a landscape of threat. Now, this year we are also looking at Valerie Kaur's 10 Practices of Revolutionary Love. And her practice of push gives this interior work a body, a breath, and a direction. To push is to choose to enter grief, to enter rage, or even to enter trauma as part of a healing process. To move through the painful sensation then around it. Discerning when the moment calls for movement and when it calls for rest. Because the only way through is to go through. Kaur describes this through the story of Roshan, the person who had harmed her in her youth, whose healing required him to stand in the heat of his own shame, to resist the easier path of minimization, and to move toward honest accountability. His path was one of self-reconciliation, accepting the darkest parts of himself and integrating them into his understanding of who he was. Shadow work rendered here in human terms becomes a labor. It's active, embodied, and demanding. And when that labor was sustained, something that had seemed unreachable became possible. Reconciliation between two people, each carrying their own distinct healing. What becomes possible through this sustained labor is extraordinary. Teasdale names self-knowledge as nourishing, a pervasive peace, a settledness that does not depend on circumstances or on having resolved every interior tension, but that arises from the simple, ongoing willingness to be honest about what is present. Richard Rohr points toward integration as the ground from which genuine compassion grows for ourselves and for others, because a person who has met their own shadow with honesty carries a quiet understanding of human fragility that makes them less quick to judge and more capable of real accompaniment. The shadow, fully seen and honestly held, loses its power to drive behavior from the dark. So brought into the light of honest awareness, it becomes available for transformation, and the self that emerges from this process is more spacious, more truthful, and more capable of genuine love than the self that arrived at the door of shadow work with great reluctance. And friends, this is the invitation of our session today: to come honestly to what lives in the interior, to bring that honest reckoning a spirit of warmth rather than condemnation, of inquiry rather than verdict, and to practice, in the words of these teachers and companions, the kind of self-knowledge that is not self-punishment, but self-liberation, a courageous, tender, and ultimately joyful turning toward the whole of what we are. So let's take some time now in guided inquiry to step into this with honesty, to enter into a moment of experiential, mature self-knowledge. Take a moment to settle into your body. Let your feet find the floor. Let your hands rest somewhere comfortable. Take one slow breath in and release it fully. Our time now is set here for honest, unhurried attention to the interior life. There's nothing to perform here, nothing to resolve, and nothing to defend. This practice is an act of self-compassion, an invitation to turn toward the whole of yourself with the same tender curiosity you might bring to someone you deeply love. And the inspiration for our inquiry tonight comes from the ancient and universal understanding that the interior life holds both light and shadow, that within each of us there are qualities long welcomed and celebrated, and other qualities that have lived in quiet concealment. Some may be even wrapped in shame or silence or simple unawareness. Every wisdom tradition that is endured has known this. Every teacher of depth has walked this same interior territory. So the invitation now is to walk it too, gently, honestly, with open hands. Notice where you feel most at ease right now. A place of softness, of openness, of warmth. Perhaps it is in your chest, your belly, your palms. Wherever it is, let your attention rest there for a moment, as though you are settling into a familiar chair. And from that place of ease, allow your awareness to move slowly inward. Somewhere within you there is a quality, a pattern, a reaction, an impulse that you have kept at a certain distance. Something you recognize when it surfaces, though perhaps you move past it quickly. Something you have named with a word that carries a faint trace of judgment. Too much, too little, unworthy, embarrassing, inconvenient. Whatever it is, let that quality rise gently at whatever pace feels right. And if I get ahead of you, just stay where you are. But notice where in the body it lives. Notice, does it carry a weight, a texture, a temperature? Does it feel dense or diffuse, settled or restless? Just notice. No need to analyze it, just see it. Let yourself simply observe the way you might observe weather moving across an open field, present to it, curious about it, unrushed by it. And breathe into wherever in the body this quality seems to reside. Holding that in your awareness, allow yourself to wander with real openness, with real gentleness, what this quality has been trying to protect, or what it's been trying to protect or express or carry on your behalf. What genuine need lives at its root? What wound has it been quietly guarding? The shadow does not emerge from nowhere. It has been shaped by experience, by teaching, by survival. And it has served a purpose, even when that purpose has long since run its course. Notice if there is any softening in the body as you consider this. Notice if there's any shift in how the quality feels when it's met simply with curiosity rather than judgment. And just remain here for a moment and breathe. Now bring to mind the understanding that this quality, this long concealed part of you, does not define the whole of who you are. It is a fragment of a much larger interior landscape. And that landscape holds depths of goodness, depths of resilience, and depths of love that run far beneath what is visible on any ordinary day. The invitation of mature self-knowledge is precisely this: to see the fragment honestly and to hold it within the larger truth of the whole. Let that larger truth be present to you now, not as a thought, but as a felt sense. Allow it to occupy the body the way warmth occupies a room, gradually, quietly, thoroughly. Take another breath. Consider what this quality might become if it were met consistently with this quality of honest, compassionate attention. Consider what becomes possible in your relationships, in your communities, your inner life, when the shadow is seen rather than suppressed, when it is integrated rather than exiled. Carry with you this brief mantra into the silence for a few moments. Breathing in, I turn to what I have kept hidden. Breathing out, I meet it with honest, tender attention. Breathing in, I turn toward what I have kept hidden. Breathing out, I meet it with honest, tender attention. When you are ready, begin to return your awareness to the room around you. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Notice the breath moving in and out. Gently open your eyes. And carry with you into the rest of this session, this evening, the spirit of this practice. Honest, tender, unhurried attention to the whole of who you are. And may that honesty be a gift, both to yourself and to all those whose lives your own life touches. Friends, before we close this evening, I want to remind you that this session is recorded. It's available on the Mighty Network. It's available on YouTube. And on the Mighty Network, we also offer some dialogue questions that you can take on individually, or you can share on the Mighty Network in dialogue and see how other people are answering these questions. I will share them now, and if you'd like to provide a short answer to each of them or any of them, you can feel free to do that at any time. The first one is, Richard Rohr teaches that the shadow hides most effectively in our virtues and in our best intentions. Where have you recognized a pattern that arrived dressed as something admirable, only to reveal a more complicated truth? And what did that recognition open for you? Next, Wayne Teasdale names uncertainty about one's own virtue as a mark of spiritual maturity. So, how does remaining genuinely unsure about the goodness of your own motives sit with you? And where has that uncertainty served your growth? Next, the shadow often carries gifts alongside its difficulties, concealed energies and genuine needs long carried in secret. Can you speak to a quality that you have moved toward honest acceptance of, and what you discovered on the other side? And our next question, Adrienne Marie Brown locates genuine accountability and worthiness, the recognition that even at one's worst, growth remains possible. So, what does it mean in practice to hold the reality of failure and the reality of worth simultaneously? And I'll just give pause for a little bit to see if anyone would like to answer one or more of those in brief in the chat here. There was an earlier note from one participant that the guided meditation was a powerful exercise, that the person was able to release repressed emotions. Gratitude for your participation. Thank you. Friends, developing honest awareness of our intercontradictions without denial or shame is the path for mature self-knowledge and for integrating the shadow. So you're invited into this deep challenge at your own pace, of course. It is a yoga, so to speak. And as I said, these questions will remain on the Mighty Network for you to return to and reflect on as you feel called to do so. That will wrap us up for this evening. Blessings to all. I look forward to seeing you all again next time. Good night for now.